Position.
Donc, il ouvre la porte.
Right. So he is opening the door to legalizing hard drugs in Montreal and perhaps in other cities in Quebec. We're against it.
The minister legalized smoking meth in hospital rooms, shooting up heroin in parks next to children, using hard drugs on public transit. The British Columbia government has asked him to reverse this legalization for parks, hospitals, and transit. Will he? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the opioid epidemic is hitting families, communities, and individuals right across this country and has for many, many years. That's why we are continuing to use an approach grounded in compassion, in public safety and public health, and facts-based decisions. We responded to British Columbia government's asking for a pilot project. We will, yes, work with them to adjust it in ways that they see fit. It's important to make sure that BC continues to do the things that it needs to do to keep people safe in its jurisdiction.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He still refuses to answer the question on whether or not he will reverse himself. He made the decision to exempt hard drugs from the criminal law so that it became legal to smoke meth or crack in a hospital room, including around nurses who are breastfeeding their kids. This has caused chaos, and 6 British Columbians are dying every day that he delays. So will he announce that as of today, he's changed his mind and he's reversing his legalization of hard drugs in BC? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a number of years ago, British Columbia approached us with a pilot project that they wanted to bring in to look at a different way of dealing with the ongoing public health crisis that was hitting British Columbia around the opioid epidemic. We worked with them as they developed this pilot project, and now that they are asking for modifications to that project, we are looking at those modifications, and we will work with BC as they seek to adjust their plans around public health and around dealing with this opioid epidemic.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, there is no time to waste. The BC government asked him to reverse his legalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in public places on Friday. Every day, 6 British Columbians die of overdoses under this policy, and many more die as a result of drug-induced crimes. So there is no time for bureaucratic and political considerations. Will he announce now that his experiment with legalizing hard drugs in BC is over? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you will understand if I take it with a little skepticism when the Leader of the Opposition says this is not about politics, because he has been the one that has been pointing out vulnerable people and trying to pursue ideological aims on this ongoing public health crisis. We have consistently stepped up to work with provinces, with municipalities, with jurisdictions, indeed, including by moving forward with British Columbia as they wanted to try a pilot project that we are working with them to adjust in ways that make sense. We understand the urgency and we will act.
Leader of the Opposition.
The decision is on his desk to reverse the legalization of hard drugs in British Columbia. The BC government has admitted that it was wrong. They decided not to go ahead with the full 3-year pilot project that the Prime Minister brought in place by exempting hard drugs from criminal law. Will he do as the BC government has done, admit he was wrong today so we can start saving lives?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning, we've been there to work on an evidence-based, science-based, compassionate public health approach to the opioid epidemic, and that included responding to BC's request for a pilot program. Now that they are asking to adjust this pilot program, we will work with them to adjust it in ways that make sense for them. But given the new, more reasonable tone of the Leader of the Opposition, I wonder if he might take this opportunity to reassure Canadians that he does not support extremist white nationalist organizations like Digalong, nor wants their votes.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is false. And furthermore, there are 6 people dying every day in British Columbia. There is a 380% increase in overdose deaths in that province under this Prime Minister's legalization and subsidization of hard drugs. Enough trying to score political points over the issue. Do the right thing. It is on his desk. Will he announce today that he has changed his mind and reversed legalization of hard drugs? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. As I've said, we're working with British Columbia to adjust their parameters and their desires around the pilot project. We will always be there to work in order to keep Canadians safe. At the same time, I will point out that the Leader of the Opposition refuses to say a simple thing, that he condemns Diagolon because they are a white nationalist violent organization, that he rejects the endorsement of Alex Jones, an extremist conspiracy theorist who denied the deaths of 20 kids at Sandy Hook. These are things that concern Canadians that he should also answer for.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this is the Prime Minister who has to answer for the people who are dying every day due to his policies. And worse still, he's now considering decriminalizing hard drugs in Toronto. The City Hall has made a formal request for him to use powers under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to do in Canada's biggest city what he already did in British Columbia. Today, I wrote him a letter asking him to change his mind and reverse his position and make clear that he will not legalize hard drugs on buses and in hospitals in Toronto.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, we see fear-mongering going on by the Leader of the Opposition right now. I will recall for people that a number of years ago, the City of Vancouver approached us with a desire to decriminalize in their city, and we said, no, we would not do that for Vancouver. We work with provinces and public health systems. That is why we moved forward with British Columbia on a pilot project they wanted. In regards to any other province, whether it be Quebec or Ontario or anywhere else, we will work with the governments in place on proposals they may or may not have to deal with the opioid epidemic. That's all.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
You still won't clearly answer the question, Mr. Speaker, which is doubly concerning because Toronto has been overtaken by crime and chaos since he brought in the catch and release policies under Bill C-75, C-5, and C-83. Violent crime is up 40%. We just heard the tragic story on Monday of a liquor store robber crashing into a family, tragically killing a grandparents and a precious child. The assailant was out on bail. Will he repeal catch and release?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I believe if you or other parliamentarians or indeed Canadians look at the transcripts of these questions and answers, they will see that I actually did answer the questions the Leader of the Opposition posed to me in terms of how we were going to work with British Columbia and how we would work with any province that came forward with positions to try and help with the opioid epidemic, and we would examine those on their merits. But the Leader of the Opposition has not answered Canadians' concerns about why he will not condemn Diagolon, the far-right extremist organization, why he will not reject the endorsement of Alex Jones, noted conspiracy theorist.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, he has not answered the question whether he would expand decriminalization elsewhere. He's using vague references to jurisdictions, but it's his jurisdiction alone to grant exemptions under the Controlled Drug and Substances Act. So, will he admit that his real plan is to take the decriminalization of hard drugs that he imposed on British Columbia and do that in all the provinces and territories across the country?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No, Mr. Speaker. I think for 8 years, for almost 9 years now, Canadians have seen that our approach on the opioid epidemic is grounded in public safety, in public health, in compassion, in funding frontline workers, and doing things that work to save lives and help people. And it is not to have some sort of secret plan, as he proposes. But if he wants to talk about secret plans, he would probably do well to actually clear the air for Canadians about his seeking for support amongst members of extremist white-ring organizations like Diagolon.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is again false, but the government is now suddenly and only partially changing its message on decriminalization. Prime Minister's Minister of Addictions is out now saying she's waiting for more information from British Columbia on its request to recriminalize crack, heroin, meth, and other hard drugs in hospitals, transit, and parks. Mr. Speaker, there are 6 people dying every single day. What more information does he need?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are dozens of people dying every day in provinces right across this country from the opioid epidemic. We could talk about the challenges faced in Alberta. We could talk about the challenges faced in Ontario. We could talk about the challenges faced right across the country. And different provinces and jurisdictions have different approaches. Some work better, some haven't worked as well. We will continue to be there in a thoughtful, compassionate, rigorous, science-based way to work with jurisdictions on directions that work best for them and adjust those proposals and those responses as necessary. That's what a responsible government does.
Canada's biggest city, gun crime is up 66%. It's 100% nationwide. I just shared the tragic story of someone out on bail slamming his car into an innocent family. 2 wonderful grandparents dead, a beautiful baby dead. He was out on bail under the Prime Minister's catch and release C-75. How many more will have to die before he repeals catch and release and brings jail, not bail, for repeat offenders?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will highlight that we worked with provinces, including many provincial conservative leaders across this country, to bring in bail reform. We'll continue to work on things that are keeping Canadians safe. At the same time, the leader opposite talked about gun crime. Well, we move forward with some of the strongest measures on gun control that this country has ever seen. A freeze on the purchase of handguns, a total ban on assault-style weapons that has been in place for 4 years. These are the kinds of things that the Conservative Party and its leader have consistently stood against, even as we move to make our communities even safer.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He mentioned all these guns that he claims to have banned and promised to seize 4 years and $40 million ago. How many has he seized?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are thousands of different types of assault-style weapons that for the past 4 years have been rendered illegal to sell, illegal to buy, and illegal to use, including at a gun range. Mr. Speaker, we are now working on a program to allow those owners to sell them back to the government for them to be destroyed and get money so they can go buy other guns or other products if they want to that will be legal. This is about fairness, even as we move to keep Canadians safe. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition wants to make those assault weapons legal again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All those weapons are still legal, Mr. Speaker. You can still own them. The Prime Minister says he's going to seize them. He's going to buy them. He's spent $40 million doing that. So I'm going to ask again, how many guns has he bought? Just the number.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the Leader of the Opposition knows, we are in the process of establishing that buyback program. The priority was making sure that those guns were no longer available to buy, to sell, to bequeath, or to use, Mr. Speaker, and that has been the case for 4 years. Now, what the Leader of the Opposition is conveniently refusing to opine on is the fact that he has committed to the gun lobby across this country that he would reverse the 2020 OIC that banned those assault-style weapons. He wants to bring those assault-style weapons back, or he can contradict me right here.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I will contradict him because they're not banned right now. It's perfectly legal for people to possess those guns. They are easy to possess, and not one of them has been. The answer to the question is that he has not seized a single solitary one of them. He's spent 40 million tax dollars that could have secured our ports and our borders, and he hasn't taken in a single solitary gun. Is that why gun crime has risen by 100% since he became Prime Minister 9 years ago?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I will note, as did everyone in this chamber, that the Leader of the Opposition did not deny that he will be reversing the ban on assault-style weapons. He doesn't even think it exists right now. Well, Mr. Speaker, it does exist right now. It is illegal to buy, sell, or use any of those weapons. When the amnesty ends next year, it will be illegal to own them as well. We're giving an opportunity for people to sell them back to the government. That is what we are doing to keep people safe. That is what he will not commit to keeping.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
2 years ago, after having doubled the rent, doubled mortgage payments, and doubled the needed down payment for a home, the Prime Minister promised in his budget that he would double home building. Here we are, 2 years later, and home building is down 8%. His housing agency says it will be down next year and the year after that. If it cost him $89 billion in programs to bring home building down, how much would he have to spend to bring it up?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our housing plan is focused on fairness for every generation. We, over the coming years, will be unlocking 3.8 million new homes by cutting red tape, by rezoning, by lowering the costs of home building, by using public lands and vacant office buildings to build affordable housing for Canadians. We will be reviving the dream of home ownership for young Canadians by making it easier to save up for a tax-free down payment and giving renters credit for their monthly rent payments towards the ability to get a mortgage. We've put forward the most comprehensive, ambitious housing plan this country has ever seen.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The only thing it doesn't do is build homes. Since he made the most recent promise in 2022 to double housing construction, the number of builds is actually down and expected to continue to drop next year and the year after that, according to his own housing agency. Yet, he says we should all be assured because once again, he's spending tens of billions of dollars on the problem that he created. So can you tell us, in what year will home building actually rise? Which year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know well that the federal government has an important role to play in ensuring housing starts across the country and ensuring the opportunities for Canadians to buy their first home, to move forward up the equity ladder. These are things that we know we have a role to play in. But we are not alone in that, Mr. Speaker, which is why we are challenging and encouraging municipalities and provinces to also step up with ambition in our national housing home building plan. This is why we're putting incentives on the table. We're putting investments in the pockets of municipalities, including with our Accelerator Fund. There is more to do, but we will be doing it in partnership.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That's what he's been saying for 9 years. And the result has been double the rent, double the mortgage payment, double the down payment. And just this week, a survey showed that 72% of Canadians who don't own a home believe they never will. Canada was not like this before this Prime Minister, and surely it won't be like this after he's gone. The Prime Minister a comment on what it's like to be the only Prime Minister in history to deprive an entire generation of home ownership.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government that was in place before I became Prime Minister had a housing minister who is now the Leader of the Opposition, in a government that explicitly said that the federal government had no role to play and no responsibility towards building affordable housing across this country. So for 10 years, there was very little, there was almost no federal involvement in building homes across this country. We turned that around starting in 2017, and we will continue to invest to create opportunities, to create fairness for millennials and Gen Z so that they can buy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, he did turn it around, Mr. Speaker. 9 years is obviously too long for him because he's starting to attribute to the previous government words he said himself.
Yeah.
He was the one who said the federal government is not responsible for home housing construction or affordability. That is after he doubled the cost. When I was housing minister, we built 89,000 apartments at an average rent of $973. Since then, the rent has doubled, the mortgage payment has doubled, the needed down payment has doubled. So with all this failure, why is he doubling down?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our Housing Accelerator program, our comprehensive plan to build more homes, to make sure that Canadians can see themselves in home ownership once again, is exactly what we are continuing to invest in. Yes, I pointed out that we cannot build homes alone, that we need partners in the provinces and municipalities, but I never denied that the federal government needs to continue to act on housing. That's why we've done that since 2017. That's why we're continuing to do it now. We need to make sure that young Canadians have opportunities their parents and grandparents have. That's what we're stepping up for. That's what he refuses to do.
None I had to
The Honourable Member for Avignon.